Hi, it's Z here. So in the previous videos, we've talked about a number of different ways that you can protect and distribute your Excel workbook. But in all of these different options, they've always centered around still having a Excel file in itself. So for the last option, we're going to be looking at something different, where rather than use a Excel workbook tool in its native form, we convert it into the core logic. So for calculator app, it's about taking the calculation logic and turning it into code, and then converting that into some sort of web app or phone app so that your users can interact with it. So there are a number of different ways that you can do that, and in this particular video we're going to be focusing on a demo using a tool, a managed service called Glide. So maybe before we actually step into a specific demo, I should probably mention that there is something very similar called Power Apps, and Power Apps is a Microsoft native tool that allows you to build apps very quickly. And the way to think about it is it allows you to create a app that can link to a number of different data sources, one of which being an Excel sheet that can live in OneDrive or whatever location that you want. So the demo that I'm going to show you is for a different tool, but it's a similar kind of principle as Power Apps, and I haven't done Power Apps because I'm more familiar with Glide than I am with Power Apps, but the idea is the same. So what Glide does is it allows you to construct an app from a Google Sheet very quickly, and it only works with Google Sheet, so there's a bit of a extra step where you need to take your spreadsheet and you need to put it into Google Sheets, and Google Sheets has a default function that allows you to convert a spreadsheet into a Google Sheet. So you just need to be careful that if you're using macros, then it probably won't work. But if it's just calculations, it works fine. And then the next step is you need to convert your data from, I guess what I'd call this kind of single view to something that's more like a database record. And what that looks like is it needs to be sort of one row for all the information that you want to reflect. So you can see that from the column names, these all correspond to the input columns, and in fact some of the output columns are also here, but they are within the same row. So you can see this is just these two columns calculated, and that corresponds with the spreadsheet where you've got the same sort of logic in place. So there's a bit of work to do that step, but it's necessary because the way that these sort of apps work, so Glide, Power App, and a few of the other similar kind of tools, is that they work by creating a front end that looks and feels like a typical phone app that you're probably already using, and links it to a Google Sheet that it uses as a database. So once you have that information in this particular format, all you need to do is start building the front end portion of your application and link it to the correct cells. So this is just a front page. It doesn't really do very much, but this is the one with the information. So if I were to click this, it's displaying some information, and where the information is coming from is where the information is coming from is each of these cells or fields are referencing the Google Sheet tab that you saw a moment ago. So you can see that the data is pulling the field called logistic case steepness and displaying it here. And you can also modify it, where if you click 10 and say I make it 12 and I hit done, when I go back to the spreadsheet, takes a moment for it to update. It says 12. And the graph also changes accordingly. So you saw it make a bit of a blip. So in that way, the user doesn't have to worry about what's going on in the spreadsheet, because all they see is the front part, the front end of the application. And you can also include graphics into the front end by creating a chart and publishing the chart. And the chart comes out as a URL, and Glide has a feature where you can link an image to a URL, and it will display the chart. So I can't seem to be doing that here. Yes, right. So you can display the chart image, and the image can be the column, and the column references a URL, and it spits out a chart. You can also make it clickable if you want people to sort of interact with the chart. So unfortunately it's a static image, but if you want people to interact with it, you can put a hyperlink to the interactive version of the chart. So nice and clean, relatively straightforward to do once you've gone past the step of putting your data into this sort of format. There is something additional that I haven't done. So right now, this app is open to anybody who accesses it. So it's anonymous, meaning that there is no login process. What that does mean, though, is that everyone is actually looking at the same set of data. So if I opened up another incognito tab and I started to view this particular app, and I start moving things, I will be amending the same row, which is exactly the problem that we had in one of the earlier videos where we talked about putting your spreadsheet onto a file sharing website. Luckily, there is a way around this, and the Glide allows you to do specific user profiles. So you can also set up individual user profiles, and you can also restrict users to edit their own records. So there is a workaround where I haven't put this up yet, but you can set up a user details page, and you can have a user specific input. And this is similar to the app you saw a moment ago, with the difference that here you have to sign in, and you sign in with a email, and once you have that email signed in, the information that you can edit is specific only to yourself. So I've left all of this as a let me just copy this. I left all of this as a free template, so you can head over to this website, and you can just copy this app and play around with it, maybe modify it to suit your own needs.